Yeehaw! Let's roll with the IaM Power Hour. Hi, I'm Terry J. Walker, and I'm here with my beautiful co-host, Dr. Pat Bacilli.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk to you today about navigating the seas of life. Have you ever thought about it that way, Doc?
You mean like navigating the hurricane seas of life? You mean you're talking about that like tsunami sea of life? That one?
That one.
Yeah,
That's
let's
the one I'm
roll.
talking about.
Let's
Let's
do it.
roll. I don't know how this is a worldwide event, and the seas of life, not the SEAS, but the letter C's.
Where'd Terry go? Terry's on mute. Terry, did you mute yourself? Look
I
at,
believe
she
it's
is
her
touching
internet
her
there,
phone
Pat.
and
I think
dang,
it's
she
her
muted
internet.
herself.
Yep.
Did I mute myself?
Yeah, you're back though.
Okay. Well, this is just the story of my day. Being the captain of your ship, how are we going to navigate these seas? And my internet is down, and we're having to do this as a hotspot via the phone. AT&T is out working on it, but it's all due from the storm and the tornado last month. And we are expecting some major storms in again tonight, and we probably won't have any internet. So I'm trying to do what I can with antennas because my TV streams.
Well, let me just tell you this: what I'm liking about the phone companies and these people. Jessica said, "Don't call them the phone companies because they don't call themselves that anymore." Well, what do you call yourself? You don't call yourself the phone company. But what they're doing is they're giving people like free data. And I don't remember which one started that. I know that we didn't get all free data with my phone, my company. That company, it starts with the letter V. Not allowed to say their name, but they gave more data, so they gave extra data. I look, the 4 C's. We're talking the letter C.
The
right?
letter C.
So navigating the seas of our life in times of fear and uncertainty.
Yes.
Where are you going to start this out? Because I brought one of my creations with me for the show.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. And
do you see her right there?
See, creation, creativity.
You see her? Get it?
I can't
Can you see her picture? You can't see her?
No, I can't see her down there. What have you got?
Okay. Olivia, are you getting her in the frame? I can't tell whether you got her or not.
Yeah, I've got her.
All right. So because you're talking about creative intentions, I brought something I created a bunch of years ago. And, let's talk about this because you're going to talk about what are the C's of life. Before we get and talk about my very special guest joining us today, let's tell people what them C's are.
Well, let's see. 1, you're the captain of your ship. And we must learn how to navigate through the contrast of storms and enlightenment. And during our journey, we need to experience these things. These are all lessons, they're all experiences, and even through our journey before the COVID-19 came about, we have experienced loss and failure, but on contrast to that, we've experienced happiness, appreciation, and success. So one thing that we do know is when chaos continues, another C, and confusion, this is the time to be creative and understand that things do change in the blink of an eye. So those are the C's we need to learn to be able to navigate through: change, creativity, contrast, chaos, confusion, COVID-19, and understand that change is going to happen, but we need to know how to be able to navigate through that.
And there are 2 others that you talk about: choice and connection. And I love the choice thing because by the way, this is a self-portrait. There's a story that goes with her. Well, some
Very
people say, is it a her or is it a him?
true.
I'll let you all figure that out. But it is a self-portrait. And
Yeah.
the reason I brought the warrior with us today because of the word choice that you were using today.
Yes.
So what is the difference between a victim and a victor? Like a victim and a victor, those two words.
Well,
Because I've been both. But
well,
there's one word in your list that separates this one to this one. And that is the knowledge that we have the choice, the freedom to choose whether
freedom
we're
to
going to be this energy or this, don't you think? And you and I, we should talk a few stories about how we've been both.
Yes, we've had the freedom to choose, and sometimes we don't make the best of choices, but that has been given us the freedom. And being a victim versus being a victor, many of us get caught up in complaining, and we put ourselves in a victim role by doing that, whether we realize that or not. And when we start pointing fingers and judging and complaining, instead of looking within to become the victor, because we do have the power within us that is greater than ourselves, that we always have the choice to lean on, to turn to. And this is the greatest time on earth in history, and history's being made as we sit here and speak right now. Things, they are a changing, and we know that, but we've got to understand, do we want to continue to sit back and complain, there's a C word, and not and take on the judgment and point the fingers, or do we want to look within, make that choice to look within by contrast, and figure out a way to rebuild, reignite, reinvent, and reinvest in ourselves so that we will come through this? All storms will pass. All storms will pass. So how are we planning to come through this on the back end? Are we looking at the end game, or are we just complaining on the past and the now game?
Can I think about that question for a minute? Look, what I'm trying to say is that is a powerful question.
It is.
And I am one of those people that when folks hear my show, especially knowing I've been doing this 16 years,
Yeah.
they are thinking in their brain that this child is evolved. I'm a kid from the Bronx. What I know about spirituality is what I do, street smart spirituality.
Yep.
That's what I know. And the reason I call it that is that, you know, sometimes you've got to learn not to walk down a dark alley by walking down a dark alley and seeing what the hell that feels like.
Right.
And today we are walking down a lot of dark alleys that are within our own mind. And that's the work you do with people. You know, we're talking about you as a success coach, as a speaker, as a trainer, as somebody that's trained in the field of psychology and, you know, your role in helping people, right? You have, you know, like vast knowledge on how to talk to people, how to use the artful skill of sales to get people the kind of things they need in organizations, right? You have a background of that. But most importantly, if anybody has read The Resume of Life, which is right behind you there, if anybody has read that or has heard previous shows we do, they're going to know and realize that you're coming here today because you got kicked in the mouth a couple of times and lost a few teeth.
Yes, ma'am, I did. My soul stretching sister, I did. And the thing about it is, and I was looking back through the Resume of Life the other day, and I thought, and I've told you this in the past, I didn't write that book; it was written through me.
Yeah.
And I could give you example after example of when I would just go into some kind of zone and be typing as fast as I possibly could. Time would just stand still or go by, and I wouldn't know. 5 hours later, I was still sitting there typing. When looking back over this book now, it has truly stood the test of time. And I was thinking the other day that you had mentioned to me on one of the first interviews we had, and we were talking about the book. You mentioned that I had a chapter in there called Wants versus Needs. And you also said those chapters don't make these books, but somehow it made yours.
Yeah.
And I looked back over through that chapter of wants versus needs. And man, oh man, is it standing the test of time today. That we want so many things outside of us, and we are afraid to make the choice to to establish the needs that we have and the greatness that we have within. There is such a difference and such a change in time right now. Things are changing so rapidly, and I know this beyond any shadow of a doubt, Dr. Pat, that when this passes, the world will never be the same again. Corporations will need to change. All things are changing right before our eyes. And the question becomes, what choices are we making in the fact of, are we helping ourselves? Are we making better choices? Are we doing what's needed for us and then in turn for our families? And communication is another C that I mentioned in there. And connection is another C that I mentioned in there. Now we're only connected by the power of the internet. Otherwise, we're staying at home.
No
What's going
question
to
about
happen
it.
when all this is back? What's going to happen when this all, passes? And what kind of connection? What kind of communication? All of those things. What are we going to have on the other side of this? And this is why I'm trying to come out stronger than I ever have before. I've done some videos on the side to try to help people to be able to know that they're not in this alone, and they have the choice to rebuild and reinvest and come up with their own creative skills and build on their unique skills and abilities. Just like I mentioned in the resume of life, we all have unique skills and abilities, and this is the most opportunistic time to take this as an opportunity to be more creative, to have the power of choice, the free will that we've been given, and to be able to communicate more effectively with our internal source. And in turn, that's going to help us communicate and come up with better ideas, better ways of doing things, and more connection to the outside world. So there's your C's, and that's pretty much navigating the C's of our journey.
So let's take a short break, Terry, because when we come back, we're going to be talking about you are what you think.
Yes.
And the power of our thoughts in so many ways.
Yes.
Because I did a previous show today, and I had an epiphany this morning in my meditation. And the epiphany was, never in, I think, the history of the past 100 years in the United States of America has the government done something so inclusive as what the Congress passed here recently. And what I mean by that is it wasn't as inclusive as I would have liked it to be, because my understanding is it did not include any folks that are immigrants, on whatever visa. That's my understanding, even if they had a work visa, but I'm not the expert. But it was so inclusive that for the first time, it included people that are business of one people that are out there and just in the forefront of businesses. The people that used to have regular jobs and were regular employees and were downsized. And when we come back, we'll talk about you are what you think, because there are so many people that are thinking as the old paradigm and aren't even applying for the funding that's available. And we've been trying to help people. We've been trying to say, yes, that was then, but now there are different guidelines. You, the business of one, folks, all of us, those of us that have been called contract, yes, we now have things available to us. Absolutely. But yet our thinking is in the old paradigm. So when we come back, Terry's going to help us with the power of our thoughts. And that C word is consciousness. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back with, this is what we're talking about. Navigating the seas of our life in times of fear and uncertainty. It's the IaM Power Hour, Soul Stretching Success. Terry J. Walker and me, Dr. Pat. We'll be right back.
Oh, Benny, thank you for that.
Yeah, Benny. We got to thank Stevie for that too, though.
Oh, Stevie too. Well, thank you for the landslide.
Wow.
Things are always changing.
Wow. Terry, let's take a minute. How do people find out about Soul Stretching Success and you and working with you on this?
You can find me at www.IamTerryJWalker.com, and you can also call me at 888-426-7697, and that is 888-IAM Power, POWR. That equates to the IaM Power Hour show that we're doing here. And you can also email me at terry@IamTerryJWalker.com. And I would love to hear from you, because I believe that, we're all in this together. I've done some videos previously about that, and I want people to know that they're not alone. They are not alone in this. We're all in this together, and together we will rise in creativity and reinvesting and rebuilding and reinventing ourselves, because it is change, and we're living the history of it. But in the end game, when we look back on this, we're going to see how we were able to rise in courage, connection, and communication.
Yeah. I mean, I woke up this morning and I had that epiphany, as I was getting ready for my day, and, just watching Olivia and Zach go through a new interface, right? Because we've talked about this before. Zoom had to take some measures to protect people, because we have a few folks out there that must have too much time on their hands and decided they were going to hack, online first and second grade classes and do some real ugly stuff. And Zoom didn't predict that. And so they are making adjustments. But in the meantime, they had to do a global thing. And this is the new time we're living in, right?
Yes.
And so you can look at that if you're somebody like us, that one of the platforms we did is we built a platform around integrating our technology for Facebook around third-party interface into Zoom. And of course, now Zoom is not accepting it. But what happens with that? So let's talk about the power of thought. We could have the thought, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But if you're like me, and I've been doing this 16 years, I know there are other solutions. And so first thing I do is I make a few phone calls, I get online, and there's a new solution with Skype. But we don't quite have enough time to figure out the details of it. But Zach and Olivia do the best they can. We thought we had a plan, and like all plans, they don't work. Or they don't work when you need them. And that's why when I'm coaching people today, I'm doing what Gina Rivera said yesterday, and I'm saying you need to apply for unemployment. You need to put yourself in a standby status. You need to make sure you're covering yourself, even if it's going to take a couple weeks, a month. It will be retroactive. There are things that people can do if you are like us, the business of one, if you're like independent, and that's never been available to us before. And that's what I mean. But if our thinking is on the old paradigm, which says, hairstylists, restaurant attendants, people that are under contract, even Boeing, company right down the street here, Boeing, our airplane people, those folks hire contract people through the roof. And so
Right.
for the first time in our history, thank goodness for our Congress people, thank you, Congress people out there, they realize that we can't leave this workforce out. But
Exactly.
here's what they're finding. You know, all those people that got downsized way back in the day, them folks became contract people and they're applying for unemployment. And so here we are today. What do we do in the time of chaos? What do we seek? How do we get through this, Terry?
Well, we have to understand our thoughts create our reality, and we have to be more creative than we've ever been before. And that's what I was trying to say in the first segment, is that that is going to be this is the most important time of any of our lives. And if we close ourselves off and run in fear and hibernate from that, we're not going to go anywhere, and we're going to be left behind. But if we are willing to change our thought process and to be more open, I read a thing not long ago that said you need to have a mind that is open to everything and attached to no thing.
Mm.
And that creates a more open, creative reinvestment in yourself to be able to move forward. And if whatever you want to become, that is the thoughts that you have to utilize in your own mind. I mean, if you want to stay down in the weeds and in the complaining and the negativity and that C word, complaining, that we used earlier, then you're going to continue to in there, and all you're going to end up having is lack. When you talk about lack, you're going to continue to have lack. If you talk about abundance and prosperity, you're going to come up with more ways to be able to create more abundance and prosperity. And that leads to attention versus intention. And so attention, if you think about it, is something that we focus on outside of us that comes to us through our senses, whether that's through our sense of seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing. Those are our senses. And when, for example, if you were standing out on your back porch and you smelled your neighbor barbecuing next door, you got a whiff of that, it grabbed your attention, and you focused on that for a few minutes and was like, ooh, that smells really good, and I wish I was doing that, or whatever. But attention is something that we place on outside physical things. And that's good. We use that to set our goals of what we want to do in our life and things like that. But intention comes from the Latin word stretching out, kind of like me and you, soul stretching sisters. Intention is inward and it stretches it out. So what are you placing your intention on versus your attention on? If you're placing your attention on the news and the negativity and all of those things that are happening in today's world, or you're placing your attention on fear of getting sick or all of those kinds of things, then you're putting your attention in some places that's not going to get you anywhere. But if we turn inward with our thoughts and the power of intention, for example, intention is more of an autonomic response. For example, if you were to think about your right foot and want to move the toes on your right foot, that is internal, that's an autonomic response, that's intention. My intention is to move the toes on my right foot. So those are the two differences between attention and intention. And intention, when we get up and first thing and start our mornings, and you and I've talked about break your snooze button habit.
Yeah.
But when we get when we get up in the mornings, do we have an intention that helps us improve our energy to start our day? Intention being that one of gratitude, appreciation, of knowing, and of raising our energy so that everything flows around that intention. My intention today is to not be around people who bring me down. Well, if you set that as an intention, then those things are going to transpire, and the universe and the energy around that will take care of itself. So that if you end up around somebody that does bring you down and that is in the complaining victimization role, then you can actually, you're going to catch it sooner and remove yourself from it, because that was your intention for the day, and it's going to be reminding of you. When we're able to align our intentions with our goals, which is something we set an attention on, then we've really aligned things. For example, an attention might be, I want to make a certain amount of money by this date. That's a goal. But if we set an intention of, how can I make that certain amount of money by this date, and we align our intention with it, we become more creative, your C word again.
Right.
And that helps us to move more forward to that. And then, of course, you've got the model I plus A plus M equals T, and to be able to transform and go beyond form. And that's what a lot of us are going to have to do now, is the old ways as we once knew it are gone. Now the new ways, we need to be more creative in being able to set intentions of how we want to get there and place our attention on it. But the I, inspire, A, action and accountability, M, motivation, equals T, transformation. So how are we going to transform and get to that T? We're going to take inspired intention, inspired action, and then we're going to remain motivated to come up with our unique skills and abilities, whether we need to learn more about what it is that we're focused on, or be more creative and practice and how to do that. And that is going to lead to transformation. And that's what's going to lead most all of us out of this. And we're going to be transformed on the backside of this when we come out of it, more creative, more compassionate, more connected, more communicative, and be able to handle change much better, because we know we made the choice to do so.
Well, and it's interesting, because as we take this journey, we're not even aware sometimes of the fact that we're setting an unconscious intention. We're going to take a short break, Terry. When we come back, we're going to talk about, not necessarily the mindfulness aspect of this, but more importantly, how to purposefully, sit in the moment of our day. And then the other thing around this that, I'd love for you to talk about is the fact that, even if you're in IaM, right? IaMT, even if we're in that and we set something into motion and we realize it later, oopsie, I didn't really mean to do that, but we have incredible power to reverse it. When we come back, let's take a short break, and we're going to be talking about what's some of the intentions and actions that people are taking now. What are folks doing now? Unlike anything we've ever seen before, the level of creativity and togetherness and compassion, what are folks doing now that really touches upon all of us being able to come together and rise up? All right, we're going to take a short break, everyone. We'll be right back. We are also taking your calls, 1-800-930-2819. If you got something to say, want to get a little help, give us a shout. We'll be right back.
Benny, that is a great song, and I appreciate that, especially for today with talking about the C's and being afraid of changing because we built our life around something external. And with that, Dr. Pat, I want to welcome you back to the show.
Yeah,
Are you still with me?
I'm
I
right
lost
here.
you, I think.
I'm right here.
Okay.
I'm right
Okay, there
here
you are.
because, yeah, it's really interesting. Of course, for those of you who may or may not know, Stevie Nicks, of course, is Stevie Nicks, but she was also part of Fleetwood Mac. And
Yes.
Fleetwood Mac was one of those bands, that popped up that came through with a new and different sound, really different sound. If you think about where we were, but like all things change. And so
Yes.
what changed for Fleetwood Mac? Stevie Nicks. And so for whatever reason, and you could probably read the tabloids about this, Stevie Nicks stepped apart and became Stevie Nicks. And there she was. Now, what happened with that? Well, still that Stevie Nicks sound,
Mm-hmm.
but a different type of music,
Yeah.
because what she was able to do was change, create, right? Make
Yes.
choices and deliver something fantastic. Fast
Yeah.
forward to where we are today, one of the best segments, Benny, correct me if I'm wrong on this here, American Horror Story. When they did the segment on, I think it was Covens, when they did that, guess who was in that series, right? Probably, I think somebody told me it was one of the most watched series of AMS, right? American Horror Story. AHS rather. I get that confused with The Walking Dead. But the point is this. Yes, I know. You people are like, well, she's really watching that stuff. Look, I grew up on monster movies and scary stuff and comic books because there wasn't much else going on in my neighborhood or out in the world. But it was an
Yeah.
extremely creative time as a child for me. Things were changing. This
Mm-hmm.
thing was called television, and we watched that thing change. And we also watched the industry of broadcasting and radio change, and
Yeah.
still going through changes. That when we think about how to set an intention, and if you're thinking, I'm Stevie Nicks, I would imagine she's saying, let me set my intention. I'm going to step out here on my own, and I'm going to create some really cool music, and I'm going to have a blast doing it, and I'm still Stevie Nicks.
Yes. And that kind of reminds me of some of the things that I'm doing currently now, and I'm sure you are with Transformation Talk Radio, is that everything's always changing, and we know this. I mean, just as day turns to night and night turns to day, and we are born and we grow and we age, our body changes, everything changes. And so many people are adamantly against change and oppose change, but yet it's still going to change whether you want to come along or not. And that reminds me of recently, this week is a month, 4 weeks since we had the tornado here in Tennessee, and we still have people that are in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I read just the other day that a mother is in the hospital, and she saved one of her sons, but her other son and husband have passed away. She's had some major head injuries, I believe, and she still doesn't even know that they've passed. These things change in a blink of an eye. And even with me being affected by the storm, it changed in the blink of an eye. And I had the choice to lay down and be a victim on all of this, or to try to rise in courage. And in the process, even, we talked about not long ago, I had a contracted position to go out and do a training, and I was able to get that in before the coronavirus hit. And with that, it's taken its toll in a lot of change, because I'm coming out to try to be more inspirational and more motivational, and enhance my things as far as my coaching platform, my speaking platform, and my training platform. And then all of this, no more got through the tornado and had damage to my house. And then all of this changed again. So the contracts that I had have now fallen through, and I'm having to figure out a way to do things a little more differently yet again. But this is all in the reinvest and reinvent and rebuild in ourselves to know that sooner or later we're going to be able to come through this. But it's taken its toll on me, mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally. And I've had to go back and remember the words that I've learned, the things that I've said, and the things that I'm doing, and the compassion and the empathy that I have to have right now to know that I too am going to pull through this. And the way to do that is, how can I help others? That's a massive important question of how can I help. And this is the way that I'm trying to do that and step out there, um, through the fear, through the chaos, through the devastation, through the confusion, and be able to try to step myself out there to rise in courage. Because as you said at the beginning, and anybody that's ever read my book, and it's not that my life has been any more drastic than anybody else. It's all a journey. It's all lessons to either be learned or to continue to repeat. But this time, it's for real. And I am not about to lay down or be a victim any longer. I have to rise in courage, and that's what I want to help get other people to do as well.
You know,
Yeah.
here's an example of this too, just the way you've talked about it. And thank you for sharing that. You know, one of the things I talked about was, you know, this idea that we've outlined a platform where millions of people wouldn't have ordinarily been included. But
Yeah.
the flip side of that is, you don't know what it's like to be in a situation unless you've walked in that person's shoes.
Right.
So people can talk about, you know, what they think it's like to be through a tornado unless you've been through one, or to be through, like you talked about, job loss unless you've been through one. And we're
Right.
going through that now with COVID-19. And, you know, while I think it was a bold move for the Congress to do what they did, you know, I would have loved for them to take that next step and have our Congress people and our senators sit down and try to fill out the forms. Because one of the things that, if you think about, with all the advances that we've had with, let's just talk it like telehealth, right? Telehealth is when, now, given what we're going through, like you can have like a telehealth call with your
Right.
doctor, or a telehealth call with your psychologist or your psychiatrist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your insurance now will pay for it. But let's talk about what folks didn't take into consideration. There's an entire population of people, right?
Right.
Like, I have a friend who is 83 years old, and, you know, just amazing guy, really active, but he uses a flip phone. And so we've left out an entire group of people that need to talk to their doctors, that need to have a conversation, but they're not allowed to do audio only telehealth. So I get a message this morning, because I get updates on stuff from the American Psychological Association.
Right.
And so Washington State is like begging the administration to allow audio only telehealth for Medicare patients. Because while I think Medicare for all and what we're talking about in Medicare is a great thing, very grateful for it, we've again left out a population, people that may not have high speed internet, or may
Exactly.
not even have like a super smartphone. And we've left them out. And I think that we have to go from the intention that was set for everybody to be able to get help, right?
Right.
Then the awareness, as you talk about, right? And that
Consciously aware.
awareness, that's going to lead to some level of action. Because if you don't have awareness and you just go from intention to action, then
Yeah.
you could be stepping in a pothole that you didn't see.
Exactly. Exactly. And we've got to be consciously aware of what's going on within us, and then consciously aware of what's going on around us. And that's the only way that we can move forward in the fact of being able to connect with these people that have been left out and communicate effectively with these people that have been left out. You know, my mom is 92 years old and she has a flip phone. I'm not about to get her a smartphone because it would take an act of Congress to figure out how to use it. But she does have access to internet on her iPad, and that's one thing that she can utilize. But not everybody is that fortunate, and she has taken the time to figure that out herself. But there's a lot of elderly people and people like that, like you're saying, that they don't have that capability, and now are they sitting there alone
Yeah.
without any help for anybody to be able to communicate with them at all, except through the
Yeah.
process of that flip phone? But you can't see them. You
No.
can't see if they look pale or how they're progressing or how they're doing. And that is very, very unfortunate and something that needs to definitely be looked at.
You know, one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life was being at the point of really, really needing help. You know, that place, it's hard to describe to our listeners and the people that are viewing this today what that feels like to be at the pinnacle of helplessness.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about is if we raise up and hopefully if you're listening to this today, you know, you rise up and you now have a new level of awareness that may say, wait a minute, I'm not working my job. I am at home. Maybe I could do something to support those students with disabilities, right?
Exactly.
Because those folks, we had to write a letter to the Department of Education about those folks, you know, to just say look, we got to do more. We got to help more. But here's what I hope, and I would love for you to talk to this. You know, even though people are trying to shape the NIH and look at the strategic planning around this, we are learning so much about what it really means to provide care and support and assistance to our citizens, right?
Right.
My prayer is that we change the paradigm and we don't go back to the way we were, that we remember that including all of our citizens is important. And I was shocked yesterday with the decision by the Supreme Court about voting in, I think, Wisconsin. I was shocked.
I was too.
I don't get how we have politicized people's right to vote.
Yes.
So every day I'm learning something new, and I'm going to have to adapt to that. But I'm going to have to apply your C's to that, right?
Yeah.
And when I apply your C's, what am I going to choose? Am I going to choose to really sit down and ask the question of how did that happen? Am I going to choose to write a letter? Am I going to choose? But I never thought in my lifetime, in the middle of a crisis like this, that we would ask sick people to go to the polls to vote or don't vote at all.
Yeah.
And so these are the new levels of awareness we have. And for a lot of folks, they're way busy in their own survival mode. All of us are. We're doing the best we can. But sometimes, Tara, just like you do in the show today, you've been through a tornado. You have been through, you know, caring for people that are not well. You've been through the many things that we've talked about today. And here we are just not willing to roll over.
No. Somewhere it's going to happen though. I do believe that, and I believe that the ones that aren't willing to roll over are going to be the ones left behind. And that's just my humble opinion of it. I'm not a fortune teller, and I'm not here to try to say that I am or give that off in any way. but living a life that I've lived and living the life that you've lived, and people who have taken the time to look back over their life and see what works and what hasn't, and not continuing to repeat the same things over and over and expect different results,
Yeah.
are hugely significant. And times needed to change. There were things that weren't working, but yet we just stayed on that cycle like a hamster on a wheel, continuing to do that. And we became more and more unconscious as each day rolled by getting up and going to work and fighting the traffic and getting in bad moods and not taking any time for ourselves. And this is more of an enlightened time of it. But
let's give a shout out though.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to somebody.
Okay.
Out of everything we've talked about today, this is the shocker an hour ago. And I got to give a shout out to Bernie Sanders, right?
Yeah.
And so let me just tell you, not necessarily been a big fan of Bernie, but I got to give a shout out to Bernie because he did something today many people thought he would never do. He dropped out of the 2020 race.
Yes.
Now I want to tell you, walk a mile in Senator Bernie Sanders' shoes for a moment. Whether you like Bernie, you don't like Bernie, you like Biden, you like Trump, it don't matter. The courage, the chutzpah, the dedication for freedom that it takes for somebody that has been on the ground for 12 years fighting for this. Senator Bernie Sanders did something I think was an extraordinary act of courage. He did not have to, but he did.
Yeah. And I'm grateful that he did, because now hopefully they won't be able to have any more elections while all this is going on. So I'm grateful for that.
And that's why I think he did it. He saw that disaster that happened in Wisconsin. He saw that the Supreme Court was never going to do the right thing and allow people to vote. And this is what we're looking for leadership. And I want to say this to everybody listening, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, it doesn't matter. We are seeing extraordinary leadership from ordinary people. All of you, face masks, tattoo gloves being donated, all of the above. And Terry, for you to take your message out.
Yeah. We're all in this together. And I've said that many times. And I'm just grateful for the chance to work with you and to be able to build and have a platform in an effort that I can hopefully help someone else who may be feeling down, who may not know how they're going to get through this. We're all in this together, and I'm here to help in any way that I can. And if my message touches one heart across this planet today, then I am grateful for that may have made them make a different choice of giving up to rising up.
I gotta give a message to CNN for today in the spirit of what you just said. CNN, you are better than the article and the headline you wrote on this. Or maybe you're not. And I want to say, you better clean up your act. Because if you think that the headline on Bernie Sanders to rise, and then claim that he has fallen again, you are completely out of touch with millions of people. And I'm telling you, folks, kind of love some of the stuff you're doing over there, but I'm telling you right now, you did not get this right. He did not fall, rise, and fall. Because acts of courage and doing things for the greater good ain't about falling. Right, Terry?
Exactly. Amen. 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 You are exactly right.
So our buddies at CNN, come on, folks, get on the same page. We're not about that. Exactly. We're about possibility and miracles, folks.
Absolutely.
See, I got all crazy on you right there, Terry.
That's okay. It's about thriving and arriving. And sometimes we have to thrive to arrive, but please don't give up. Please don't give up. This is the time now to rise in courage and faith and believing of everything that you are and everything you have within you. The power of IaM is the greatest most beyond measure of
Mhm.
anything that you can have, and we all have it. It's just a matter of whether we choose to tune into it, tap
not.
into it, and
Or
believe
not.
in it.
All right, we got to roll. Thank you,
gotta roll.
everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.